This is
It's not live yet.
It's Rich.
Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United. Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United. Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United.
Alive.
Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United.
Brothaship.
You are live.
What's going on, people? What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing?
Hey,
Chilling,
how's everyone doing
chilling.
today?
Hanging in there.
We here. We here.
We
Finally.
here.
Man,
You
today's
are live.
Yeah, today's the day, man. So here we are. First and foremost, I am Rich. I am the voice you hear on the song, the remix that is, and man, I'm gonna step out the way because honestly, I just wanted to do the music, but the fellas said, we should come on. So of course, let me step back and let the fellas introduce themselves.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take the moment to introduce myself. My name is Darren Johnson. I'm also known as DJ Jersey. I'll make it simple. Welcome to the Brothaship. I think each one of us are going to kind of give a little bit of brief on who we are, what we do, and what we expect out of the show. So again, I want to thank everyone that is joining in right now. Myself, I'm a native of Newark, New Jersey. I was born and raised there in the Weequahic section. I had a lot of mentors and old school people that just were righteous and trying to show me a path of just being myself. I admired my dad so much because he was an educator in the Newark school system, and he was so real, and he tried to give me a few of those lessons. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because what I'd like to do is emote thought, inform, and just kind of move to where we're all as humans just moving toward truth and justice and just love for one another. As a professional, I've had a pretty rewarding career. I've worked in corporate America for over 30 years. I started my career at Eastman Kodak in logistics and supply chain, and stayed there for quite some time, and then moved on to Nabisco, which was bought out by Kraft Heinz, and spent some time there, and then moved on and started my own consulting company for a while, and then started working at Pinnacle Foods, and did that for only about 18 months and landed into a position at a company that's an IT company. I won't really, because I'm currently employed there, name it, but it's a big player in the IT and consulting world. So with that all said, I'm at a point in my career and life where I think it's essential to kind of just share this knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge in this dome, and then it's exponentially multiplied by the people that you're going to meet today. And, for what I expect to get out of this, I want us to have a really organic and intuitive dialogue, supplemented by the audience as we build it. You guys are going to share with us some of your questions, concerns, or differences via chat, and we'll attempt to address them. But, for me on a personal level, and I won't speak for the rest of the group, right now we've got so many different sources of information. I see the opportunity for us collectively to be that source of truth and that source of power where we really just promote unity. Because I think, until we, just as humans, and I'll start there, from a human perspective, until we start moving as a united front, we're always going to have non-value added conflict. So that's what I'm about, and I'm going to pass the mic to the next individual brother.
I think that's a great segue for me to jump on, but I do want to take a step back and just kind of highlight what the brothership is. And it's the coming together of like-minded men, different colors, cultures, just awakening consciousness for the united advancement of one another. And I guess with that being said, Jerry Jude, I hail from Harlem, New York. I've been birthed by Left Rack City, Queens, the mean streets of Brooklyn. As my wife would say, the only two places I don't claim is the Bronx and Staten Island. That's only because I haven't lived there. So no offense to any of the boroughs, but I've lived in the other boroughs. I'm presently residing out in Charlotte, North Carolina with my family. I work for supply chain management for a healthcare organization here. I guess like all of us, we've had different paths, experienced different things, and we're just not happy with it. And so we figured out a way to talk about it, shed some light in a positive outlet, if you will. And so I'm here and I'm thankful. And who's next?
Go ahead, Travis. You can have it, Travis.
Appreciate it, Bay. Yeah, how you doing, everyone? My name is Travis. Yeah, so I think one of the things that attracted me to the brothership was the opportunity to be a mirror. I think I've had some really enriching experiences, and they usually center around somebody that was in a senior position or had a position of knowledge. They were in the know somehow. And oftentimes they would hold the mirror up in front of me and kind of make me take a closer look. Sometimes that's a painful process, and other times it's just, a word or a couple sentences that they might elicit. So my journey getting here has been, I'm originally from New Jersey, Northern New Jersey, grew up in East Orange, New Jersey. My family is from the same area that Darren's family's from, the whole Newark metropolitan area. So my background is a little bit different. I'm a veteran. Today is actually my second day as a civilian. I'm a veteran, 26 years in the military, and I've just retired. So I'm getting used to a lot of different things, and I think this will be a good process for me to, self-explore and kind of figure out ways that I can be better and frankly, transition into a role that I'm not used to or even comfortable in some aspects, filling, just being a positive example to men outside of the military structure, which is, what I've been used to. So, some of you gentlemen, I've had some awesome mentors, beginning with my father. I've also got a stepdad has been a positive role model, and having those foundational gentlemen to kind of steer and guide you to make sure morally and ethically you got a good launch point. I've recognized over the years that has been probably one of the most stabilizing forces in my life, because the framework that I began making decisions, and as I got older, having to make tougher decisions, I had a foundation where I could kind of go back to and answer the question, what does right look like? My great hope is that the conversations that we have, the exploration that we kind of undergo together, it helps answer that question for one or two, just helps somebody kind of see what right looks like, a journey message of inclusivity and sharing and love, unity. All of that is something that I'm very interested in kind of going out and exporting and sharing that message. So appreciate you brothers in advance. I know, all our conversations, if they're, genuine, are not always going to be in positions of agreement, but I think that's part of the process and experience, is us getting in here and having tough conversations, and in some situations, pressing each other on positions that we have, challenging one another, and growing. So appreciate you brothers, but that's my story.
Appreciate your service too, big dog.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have the deep voice like all these guys and all that melodrama that they got. I'm usually the upbeat guy, so I'm gonna hopefully bring it up a little bit, make everybody smile. My name is Baytrick Bullock. I totally appreciate the opportunity to be on this board. These guys, we've had conversation. Only one I haven't had a conversation with was with Rich, but the other guys I've had conversations with, and they've been phenomenal. Just a little bit of exposure that I've had to their past and to their knowledge, I'm just like, wow, that's great. I'm originally from Yonkers, New York. So I'm not from none of the 5 boroughs like these guys do. I'm from Manhattan, I'm from the Bronx and all of this stuff, So I'm none of that. I'm a Westchester boy, so we didn't have the subway. I worked 20 years, I'm an HVAC mechanic since 1982. Did 20 years with a media company, a major media company. Right now I'm semi-retired, which is a good thing. Got hurt on the job, and I got different things going on, but I'm happy in my position. Married to a beautiful Latina. I got 3 kids, and like Travis said, I can't wait to get into some of the conversations and just explore each other's minds and stuff like that. I'm glad to be in this position because we need to conversate with each other. We need to get around each other because iron sharpens iron. We need to know that the thoughts we have in our head, and we're not isolated. We're not alone. We all think the same, or we have some sort of an idea where we can go and stuff like that. I totally appreciate the opportunity. So there we go. And hopefully we bring a little levity to this, because these guys were deadly serious in their introductions. I don't know what's going on.
Well, okay, so now we can get into it, okay? So that's
I ain't go.
Okay.
I ain't go.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
All right, so again, my name is Rich. Man, I'm originally from the Bronx, New York, by way of Youngstown, Ohio. OHI, show love. I went to school at Alfred State, junior college, transferred over to Youngstown State, finished at Lake Erie, all throughout just playing basketball a little bit. Got a chance to play in the ABA out in California. Took a tour of France, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, trying to chase the hoop dream, and then ended up in Zagreb, where basically they wanted to keep their team. So that was my career as far as being a pro basketball wise. Recently just served my 10th year as a police officer in Charlotte, where I'm a school resource officer doing a lot of mentoring for the youth, and, just kind of being a voice of the community for the department, and, for the community, for the youth. Overall, I feel like coming on to the show, which, I just want to do the music piece and take that challenge on, but you guys explained to me that the voice, not only being an officer, but being a younger Black male, something that was a challenge, something that was needed. So I decided to take on that and, just kind of bring to the table what I can. As you guys can see, I'm definitely the youngest. So that's what I'm saying. I'm the voice of the youth amongst the group. No puns intended. He said 82. I was born 82. But honestly, seriously, but for me, like I said in the song, I need a place where I could talk about some other things and get Jews from some other men. So I'm really here to learn from you guys and see how I can take what we discuss and bring to to the department and bring to the community, and then take the information that we're getting in, bring it back to us so we can discuss it. So really, I'm here, just to be a sponge, and I appreciate the opportunity as well. So thank you, fellas.
Okay, so with that said, I wanted to stop because I think, here's where you guys the audience will see where the organic piece of where we're coming from. We haven't rehearsed anything. We've only talked. We laugh and joke, and I think that you'll see that. But as I introduce myself, I wanted to be very upfront and very serious, because I think that we're all coming here in a place of, being serious. But let me give you some things behind the scene before we actually really chop it up. The 6 degrees of separation of the program are such that before I knew who I would be meeting with, Travis is actually, his mom is married to a relative of mine. And I didn't know that. Yeah, exactly. And once we started talking, we had the same, I knew through his mom and my cousin where he was from good stock, for lack of a better term. I knew where his head was, because as a family, we're very close knit, very close knit. I actually started going through his Facebook page once we started talking and started seeing, I said, oh, I know where that is. I know where that is. So, my point is, we're all connected, and this show hopefully is a conduit for us to bring that togetherness there. We will not agree on everything. I guarantee you that. I think that what we're seeing now is a diverse group of professional folks that have had to navigate a certain way in order to survive and be positive and patient enough to put the time and effort required to give a good, potent and cogent show. So we're ready. I think that, when we look at our demographics, for example, a lot of us, it's clear, are from the Northeast, or we started there. But you've got people now that are settled and situated in North Carolina, in that area. But as we grow and we get people to check us out, I think that, we're going to offer something that is an order winner. I did some research beforehand, and there are literally millions of podcasts or venues like this where people are having dialogue. I think that a lot of them, as I started to look and research them, some of them are scripted, some of them, don't have a lot of depth. And I think that's the challenge that we should set a standard to bring. So I think now that the audience has gotten to know us, I think one of the questions that probably makes sense to kind of throw out there is just our relationships and how we bring our family, our loved ones together to move in a positive fashion. Because, right now, as I look at the world, we have a unique opportunity when we talk about unity, but we can't be united as a human race or people until we have unity within our nuclear situation. So I'll just throw that out there as a question. How do you keep the peace in your family unit and in your relationships? Because if we aren't unified, again, we look at separation, divorce rates, the immediate impact that has on our youth and, the recipients and children of unions that don't stay unions. So I'll throw that out there.
Good question. I jump on it. Me, I'm my mother's child. I'm the only child from my mom. Thank God that I was able to we were able to get through a storm where now the relationship with my father and the children that he had, which I look at as my brothers and sisters, some do step and a half, but I'm just someone that's trying to push the envelope in his family. Being an officer, being the Superman of the uniform, when there's a problem, I get the call. A lot of pillars in my family have passed, my uncles, grandmothers, and I kind of see myself doing a lot of things that I never wanted to do or thought I would be doing now, whether it's, pamphlets for funerals or, making sure that mortgage gets paid with other people, things of that nature. But for me, the goal is to push the envelope. I know, you spoke a lot, Darren, about financial literacy. Growing up, our families didn't really have those discussions. We didn't talk about credit. We didn't talk about stock. We didn't talk about really understanding with, just what having wealth was about. So as I get this information, I'm kind of trying to push it off to the family and making sure that they know. I'm trying to learn as much from my father now of his rights and wrongs, being the father of my daughter, who's 13 years old. Just trying to make sure that I'm the best father I can be to her, learning from her, because I've got what my mom has given me, but there's just that piece of a man that I need as well to make sure that it's all well-rounded. And that's it. I'm just, I'm a friend. I'm still the same friend I've been. But, when you're talking family, I was the youngest, but now I find myself leading to a position unwittingly to be a pillar of the family. So just someone that's trying to push the envelope and make sure that, we do end up having generational wealth. Excuse me. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'll take that alley-oop from you, Rich. Wealth, that's a word that, we don't discuss a lot in our families. What is it? What is it? What does it look like? How do you obtain it? And so in growing up, like a lot of us didn't have a lot of money, but again, it was never a discussion about finance, right? It's not, you can't have that. It is, here's the money coming in, here's the money going out. Let's figure out how we can obtain those things. And so I've kind of used that, being the oldest in my household, being the oldest grandchild, or the first, if you will, to understand there was some things that I needed to kind of right the wrong, right? We tend to put our kids out at 18 and say, hey, you're grown. But we know at 18, we struggled, right? We made a lot of mistakes. And so I'm here to help right those wrongs. We seem to be the only people who force our kids out with no support and wonder why they don't succeed. And I guess to go a little bit back, my father died at an early age when I was 13. My mother raised me, she got remarried. My stepfather's been in my life. But I always figured out once I got married that I was only getting married once, that I was going to be a positive impact on my son and his life. And so those are the things that I use to kind of navigate life. And my relationships, one of my things is I just want to make a positive impact on one person. Like if I can do that, that feeds into my legacy and leaving, a positive footprint in the sands. I guess with that, I'll pass it on to the next.
Yeah.
Can I jump in, Travis, or you want to go?
Please. No, please, babe.
We are talking about generational wealth, but the original question, Darren, what was the original question?
Well, what makes you keep family a priority to achieve unity? Because one of our mission statements is to promote unity, but my hypothesis is that we can't be a unified universe unless we have unity within our own nuclear units. So I just wanted to get your guys' perspective. How do you do that? Because I'm a creature of habit. I learned very early in life to listen to the professionals. One thing you guys don't know about me, I won the Junior Olympics in boxing when I was a kid. Okay. Now, what I learned was that the people that came in that gym, a guy, his name was Gerald Hayes. He was the featherweight champion of the world. He was from Newark. Bazooka Gomez, he was, I got to meet him. He was from Puerto Rico. So my point is, you listen to the professionals. So my question was, how do we promote unity within our own nuclear structures to promote that on the show? That was my question.
So my feeling is I'll tell you guys, I was born in the mid 60s. So I don't know, me and Jerry are probably running neck and neck. I mean, me and Darren are probably running neck and neck.
Yes.
But I'm thinking the way we keep the family, the nucleus tight, your immediate family is, first of all, the main thing is communication. And you have to have the communication between you and your spouse. And then you have to also deal with your past, because we have a unique past as foundational Americans here, Black Americans here. We have a very unique past. So we since we got here, we've been battling from day one. We were battling. So we really never had a chance to sit back and gather some wealth, because even when we were let go, we were sabotaging every aspect everything that we do. So you got to battle that, and then you got to try to keep the family together. That's like, as a man, that's a hard thing to do, because we want to be leaders. We want to take control. This is the way we're going. We're going to get this done. We're going to go forward. This is how we're going to do it. So what I've learned is to educate myself. Not what the school system educates you, what the media tells you, to educate myself and find out for myself. And this way I can pass it down to my family, and I pick and choose what I want to take in my mind and how I want to lead my family. And I figure if I start with that little nucleus right there, and I try to keep everybody in order, and because there's going to be some runaways in your family, sons, daughters, they're going to do what they want to do. So I'm just trying to do the best I can with this little nucleus and learn as much as I can, and then communicate with your kids, your partner, as much as possible, and then set a value, a family value, a standard, a code that you want to have your family live by. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, those are great points, Bay. I completely agree with you. I'm gonna come at it from a little bit of a different angle. In my mind, I think accountability is like one of the foundational components. And I think you often hear, I've had conversations with friends that have had, strong male role models in their lives. And like one of the common traits there, that, oh boy was a real man, is that, they are accountable, good, bad, indifferent, ugly, happy, glad. Whatever happens, if the wheels fall off the bus, they're there, right? And they're willing to hold themselves accountable for the things and actions that have some type of they had some ownership in. I think being self-accountable, it sets a tone for your family and loved ones, that they know, situations that might be a little prickly or sensitive for them to confide in you, they know that you're going to have their back no matter what. So it builds trust and confidence in a way that sometimes words can't always bridge, because trust and confidence is one of those things where it's hard earned, but it's easily lost, right? You can lose it just like that. Demonstrating what right looks like, which is something that I highlighted, was very formative for me, I think is very important. And so that accountability, willing to hold yourself accountable, is one. But I think because of my profession, right, being in the military and being a veteran, one of the things that I have personally struggled with, and I know many of my colleagues have struggled with, is accessibility and availability, right? Those two things they're pillars, right? They are, core competencies that you have to have as a good husband, father, brother, sister, whatever, right? But your role in a family unit, particularly the nuclear unit, right? The husband and the father piece, you got to be accessible and you got to be available. And you can't, there are times where you can be one or the other, but it's prime for you to be both. I'll give you examples. My job in the past had caused me to leave for months on end, right? Now, through the wonders of technology, I was accessible because early on I had phone, and then later on video chat and Skype and other things, right? And so that kind of helped bridge that. But when I return home, you have a component where you've got real life and professional things that you got to take care of. And that kind of is a little distracting thing, particularly if you're in a profession where a lot of what your character and, projection onto society, you're being an example for others. sometimes that can be a weighty undertaking. I'm sure Rich, may be able to, relate to that. But it often places pressure on you when you're in an environment where you have to project correctness, that when you get home, you just kind of want to let your hair down a little bit and relax. But you're still on the clock because you have the most important people in your life that are counting on you to enrich them, right? To show them love and be a son, right? And conversely, what I've learned is that you need, that reverse sunlight on you to, it's a restorative property, being around those that you love, and, having your children make you giggle, or your wife rubbing your back or allowing you to rub her feet or whatever. Those things are restorative. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized how important those things are, even though, your first thought or your first desire might be to just come home, sit and stare at the wall for 10 to 15 minutes just to get your mind right, and not realizing that you're on the clock. It's a blessing to be in that situation. I think that's one of the things that I'm cognizant of now. But no matter what, the human in me, the man in me it is a purposeful reminder that you got to do to yourself that, hey, you walked in the door with the Vince Lombardi trophy, right? Don't give it away. You gotta shine that thing up and take care of it. And your family is the most important thing to you. So accessibility and availability thing is very important.
Well, I'll take a stab on it. I asked the question and then I had to start thinking of what my answer would be. But as I reflected on it from a unity standpoint and how it relates to the family, when I look at my upbringing, it's integrity and trust. My parents were together a total of 62 years. And I saw, quite frankly, the good, the bad, and the ugly in their relationship as the product of the youngest child. But one thing I can say with a high confidence level is that my dad never really lied to me, because he kept it real. If you knew him, those that knew him either loved him or feared him or stayed away from him. That's just the type of cat he was. But in those lessons, he was very clear. Son, you could be anything you want. If you are blessed to be someone of influence or have some material wealth, don't forget where you came from. If you wind up being a street sweeper, and that's an honorable profession, be the best that you can be. So that's something at a young age that was instilled in me, that where I am today, I have no regrets. And what I've learned just through his example of just being open and honest, it's helped me exponentially in the corporate world, because, my own paranoia will lead me to believe traps are set because I'm trying to navigate. So I don't have time to try to, be dubious in who I am or how I interact with people. So there's the integrity piece. As far as the trust, the basics of all unity is trusting one another. Am I my brother's keeper? That's, in my humble opinion, is what divides us internally as a people. And again, as humans, do I trust what people tell me through a certain lens? Absolutely not. They hit the nail on the head. He says he's getting information for himself and synthesizing it and then taking what's right. And that's why I think this is such a good platform, because if we all are in pursuit, and it seems as though we are, in trying to enlighten folks, we give them the information based on our understanding without an agenda, and then let people do their research. I was having this conversation with my wife over lunch today. I said, back in the day, and I'm old enough, and I'll be double nickels this year. There's no shame in my game. I'll be 55. So here's the deal. When I was a kid, when you had news, everybody loved Walter Cronkite. Some people don't, you youngsters, you may not know who that was, but he was the guy that came on the only 3 channels we had, CBS, NBC, and ABC, that told the news. And basically, as I remember, I've always been a person that loved news and information. He gave you the facts based on journalistic science, and you made a decision to determine what that was. And that intellectual curiosity took me to reading encyclopedias and learning. I got a bunch of knowledge that may mean nothing to some people, but at least it trained me on how to get to the information I was looking for. I say that to say, you know, there's a lot of information, in my opinion, that's propagated to promote disunity. So, you know, chew on that for a minute, because that's what it is. If I hear something about anyone, oh, this person is about this, or this group is about that, if I don't take the time to fundamentally find out for myself and understand what's going on, I could make a horrible judgment based on disinformation. So, you know, as I wrap a bow around the question of unity, we have to trust, and we have to be walking in integrity, because I found, you know, again, and I spend a lot of time working in my area of business. I found out people will tell me things that I don't even really need to know, because they look at me upon as a trusted person. And I joke again, I used to always say, I remember the movie Trading Places. Remember when Eddie Murphy was working hard, and then, you know, they threw some money out, and, you know, he returned the money. Something like that actually happened to me. And I'm glad I saw the movie, because at the end of the day, that's a test of trust sometimes. We never know. I know that, you know, I used to say, you know, if I'm dealing with business, when I would be out in the field, I'd get someone drunk, you know, because the truth, it's like truth serum. You know, you could talk to someone in their best mind, but you use the social lubricant of alcohol, loose lips will sink ships, and you can get all of the information that you need. So I think from that unity standpoint, man, those things that we're all talking about, I think someone talked about accountability. We talked about truth. We talked about educating ourselves independent of what we're being fed. And then I think last but certainly not least is solving the wreckage of our past. Now, I'm not going to get into my personal situation with my family unit, but I will tell you, no family is perfect. I think that I'm not overstating that. But the ability to become a child and become a man, you have to make sure that you can reconcile some of the wreckage of your past. Now, unless you come from a Cosby-esque type family structure, that's great, but that's not my reality. So what I've learned to move forward and operate in unity is to, you know, check all of that. I've had to make personal changes as a man to make sure that I'm a better brother, uncle, husband, and son to the people that I love. And I think once I started taking that path earnestly, it's actually made me better in those aspects, and it's doubled my net worth, because at the end of the day, I'm not making foolish decisions. As we touch upon personal financial literacy, you're right. We weren't, a lot of us, given the benefit of generational wealth. Again, I cannot speak for the group. Was my situation. But I remember as a young guy saying, you know what, again, with the support of parents, if I have a shot, if I get a shot, man, if I can get a job, or if I can do the things that I've been told, my dad was an educator, by the way, I think I mentioned it. If I can do that, I'm gonna at least have a job. And once I get a job, I can build and do that. So, you know, that's another show that we can start really talking about. But this financial or personal literacy thing is also predicated on the ethics we create within ourselves. I can tell from this panel, we some hardworking individuals. That's what we do. Because somewhere, and I don't know where, each of us got a seed of knowledge to know that lunch isn't free. You get what you earn, and you got to sing for your supper. And I think we all know that. So thank you guys for sharing that piece of the unity aspect. And, you know, now that we've talked about that, we've got some leaders, some folks that are in the audience that came from the Sistahship viewer. And I think what I'd like to open up or ask as an open topic would be kind of relationship with women specifically, because I know some people's personal situation that they probably are involved in a monogamous relationship I don't know what the youngins doing, but my question would be, what advice would you give to people that are in transition in relationships today to build a relationship with someone that they think that they have a future with?
That's a bombshell of a question. That's a man. In my experience, I'll take it. I mean, in my experience, the main thing is communication and being open, man. Just being open and then know thyself. You have to know who you are. And every day you're learning who you are. Every day. And every day my partner teaches me something about who I am. But the main thing is just communication. And that is one of the most scariest things in the world, is to be honest with another human being. In my opinion, that is one of the most scariest things, because you are the most vulnerable at that point. It is, and as a man, you're supposed to be in total control. Just as Travis just said, you got to be accessible. You got to come in with the Vince Lombardi trophy. Well, what happens when you walk in with the trophy and upside down? And life done did that to you. You carrying it, dragged it on the ground. What happened to you out there? How are you going to say this to your wife? Or you go to work and somebody crushed you, in various ways. You got to be able to go in there and talk to her, or even if she said something that you took offensively, and she has no idea, but it hurt your ego. You got to be able to go back and talk to her and tell her, this is how this made me feel. So I say communication is key, and know thyself. That's the way I'm going to go.
I'd like to jump in. I agree with you, Bay. I think communication and knowing yourself, but I think for me, the higher one is honesty, right? I think you began to touch on it when you spoke about vulnerability and being vulnerable. And I think that's part of the issue, as men or as children, we were never taught to be vulnerable as a characteristic of manhood, right? And so the problem is we go through life, perpetuating that image that we've been given as a youth. And it's not until you hit that wall, or that wall hits you, that you realize that's not going to work, right? The relationships have failed because you haven't been honest on who you are and how you feel. Right. So I'm going to use honesty is probably the biggest pillar for me. And it goes both ways. I think you have to, like you said, know yourself. You've got to be honest in what you want, what you will accept, and what you're willing to give. And I think that vulnerability allows you to become a better person and a damn good man, if you can be honest and vulnerable and accepting those truths.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think you have to. One of the things is, as a young man, often, or young woman for that matter too, young people in general feel like they have a lot of options, right? And so oftentimes the allure of having tons of options, the grass always looks greener on the other side. When you take that approach, right, and it's human nature, but when you take that approach, it diminishes the goodness that you have before your eyes right now, right? So you're not yet empowered to have the hindsight to realize that you got a gem sitting before you. But I think that's one of the things that young people probably should invest more time in, is finding those voices amongst them that, and Rich alluded to this, finding the voices amongst the crowd that will be enriching or stabilizing forces in their lives that can fill in those blind spots that we all inherently have when we're still trying to figure life out, right? I've had situations early on in my life where I've had you have a little girlfriend you bring home, and maybe an uncle or older cousin mentions like, hey, such and such has their head screwed on straight. They're doing well in school. They got a vision for the rest of their life. They're ambitious. Those things, those kinds of character attributes are now being placed in your brain as qualities that are desirable. And I think those are the things that young men should take more stock of, right? Because we all want somebody who's happy to go out and earn and do well in life and be positive and bring home a huge paycheck. But I guess how you go about finding that, I think people aren't always skilled at assessing those qualities that feed into somebody that might, be an ideal mate. They think they do, right? But part of the balance is how do I find somebody that has all these qualities that takes the edge off of my stuff too, right? So it's a scale, and I think that's part of the thing where you gotta listen to wise counsel that can kind of fill in for the limited hindsight you have, but at the same time, as Bay alluded to, taking stock of your own stuff and understanding that I'm bringing some stuff to the table too. So when I'm, pointing the finger, and I'm guilty of this myself, I'm pointing the finger about, dirty socks being left on the floor, or, who left the dirty plate in the sink, or whatever it is, right? I have to be aware that I've done that tenfold, and that person, who is my mate, has quietly and patiently cleaned up that one thing that I call my pet peeve 1,000 times without saying anything once, right? I had a mentor of mine who, in his counselings, right, and this is broadly to professional audience, he takes stock of human beings' flaws, right? And this is the self-accountability in that, as humans, we're naturally evil and selfish, and we have these flaws that we have to wrestle with every day just to be good people. And a relationship is the same thing. You got to understand you going in with some baggage, and be willing to put that on the table. But there is that component that Jerry mentioned where men have these character attributes that are placed in their on their plate from an early age to say, you ain't crying a bunch, and you're going to be the walking embodiment of strength, and at the same time get put in a situation where relationships don't always thrive on just those attributes, right? Those qualities are helpful, when times get tough and you have somebody that may need some strength, but that's not the full package of what a strong relationship needs from a male partner.
Yeah. I'm sitting here, I'm writing down notes because, again, I told you guys that end of the day, I'm here to sponge as well. But, to the point, I would say, just piggybacking off of Bay, definitely know thyself. I talked to a brother of mine, Pastor Barnett, kind of brings out the scripture about how a man leaves the house and he goes out and he chooses, right? So you have to choose what you want. But at the same time, I think any relationship, the communication is definitely needed, because I can come to the table and say, hey, this is me, this is who I am. I can speak career goals, family goals, and I need to be able to make sure that there is a conversation. We're conversing, not just me speaking, but also hearing her, because she may tell me at the beginning, hey, this is not what I want. I've been married before, and I do strive to actually take that step again. In all honesty, I've had a ceremony. I was married by law, but I don't know what it's like to have a wife, and I seek that. I want that. So for me, just knowing myself, and most importantly, what I'm learning now is that communication, goals, and all of those things are important. But if you don't have God first, like if I can't love my wife and my children and my family the way God loved me, the way He loved the church, then I'm losing at the beginning. If I try to take the character attributes as Jerry and Trav spoke on. And, you know, if I take what I have, what I was taught in a barbershop, it was have multiple women. My uncles had multiple women. My father had. So if I take those things that I learned and try to apply it to it's not going to work. So the more I build my relationship with God and understand how he loves me and the responsibility of coming in and what it is to have that trophy, to have that title of the man of the house, I'll do better. So again, just knowing self, knowing where I'm at with God, I think that'll make me better, you know, for that next step, that journey, as I continue to seek and, you know, just understanding that those voices, listening to TD Jakes yesterday and this morning with the Don't Drop the Mic, you know, just lowering those voices, have them so I know the distance of where I am, where I used to be. You know, was it cool to have multiple women, or as it is to have a wife, you know, and those things. So lower it, understand that it's there, but at the same time, understand that that's not the truth that I want to live. You know, at the end of the day, I want to be a better man than my father was. I want to have a relationship that I didn't have. And I want to be a better father than, you know, I was exposed to growing up. So just keeping God first and just understanding where I'm coming from.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I'm gonna give you my perspective, and I won't call it advice. I'll just share personal experiences. I have one sister in my nuclear family, and I love her dearly. So for women, I would say the very first thing you do if you want to really look at someone seriously is run a credit check on that person. It's very easy, and you can find out everything you want. And I'm gonna tell you why, because part of it is levity, but women that
ones and zeros
can tell you through their experience. The number one reason that people don't make it in committed relationships, particularly married relationships, is money. Then fidelity. So run a credit check on it, because that's going to be the first part that you're going to find out immediately. And I'm not saying prejudge them. You can, have champagne taste with a beer wallet, but you need to know. You need to have an understanding of that before you waste your time, because
But Darren, we run a credit check, and what if she's fine? Like God. Like Darren, did you see that? I'll take that with a 460. I'll take it with a 460. You know what I'm saying?
High score or low score?
The low score.
So low score, keep you stepping. That's what I would tell my sister.
How do you account for something like that being received though? Like I know you're seeking transparency, but at the same time, the response to that might be, well, hold on. I mean, I
call it oppositional research, because you need to know that. Now, again, this is just me. This is what, as a brother to a sister that I love dearly, that's what I would say. The other thing, which is a little softer, is observe how he treats his mother. How he treats women in general in his orbit. Because if he's like, "Ma, where's the meatloaf?" That's not going to bode well, because his list of expectations is probably going to be along the same lines. So I'm trying to make it a little bit through levity, but you have to observe a man, because we're creatures of habit. We're not that smart in terms of how we do things when we put out there. So I put the onus on the ladies sometimes. Watch us, because you're going to find things that if you just see, we don't change, and humans don't change.
Indicators.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
So I also like to make the accountability factor that we talked about earlier split along even lines. If you know there are things that you don't like, but you attempt to change, you're going in with a high level of risk. So, I think that would be my friendly counsel to anybody. Look at the finance thing, because people can eat it, because we're at a certain age, unless you're both in school and have to split a hot dog on a date, you really want to have some level of parity, unless it doesn't matter.
Darren, is this entry level, or is this advanced? We're heading to the next stage. I got to know.
I did a little bit of demographic research, and the people that have had interest in the show tend to be higher up. So I'm going to say it's a little bit in the middle of the game.
Okay.
But I think it's good for the younger age, right? Because not that you have to take it all seriously, but you begin to understand what it is that you're receiving in a relationship, right? Because the one thing you don't want to do is I guess, begin that pattern, right? Of picking, as Bay said, that fine girl, but who has poor financial
decision-making tendencies.
right. And so I think, I think we all have to take that honest assessment. And I don't know about the credit score, but I think you need to have an honest conversation in terms of what does life look like for you in the future, right? How do we as a unit get there? And if you guys, list that out and all 10 of your things are opposite, hey, that might be that fine girl that you just ignore that list and deal with what you get.
That's a fact.
It's weighted too, right? If
absolutely,
now in my younger years, right? If I'm out there seeking companionship, I come across, and I follow Darren's advice, right? I come across a credit report that is not doing well, right? There might be some context there that we can miss. If it's a poor credit score because the person is maxed out in student loans, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. That is a self-investment that takes a toll, and it takes a while to climb out of that hole. That's just part of how we're the economic pyramid is being built in America today. But that would be a financial cost that I'd be willing to incur. It doesn't have the same value as somebody who just goes crazy swiping the plastic and is willing to take the ship down, go down with the ship, so to speak, because they have a tendency to want to overspend.
That's but that's what we got with this the new age. That's what I see with the new kids, that everything's flashy, and immediate. Let's get it done now. Nobody wants to get married. Everybody wants things. It's microwave. We've got the microwave thing here.
Instant gratification.
So it's it's right away. But I mean, me and Darren are at the I think all of us are at the where we're established in a relationship. This is more towards Rich, where Rich can sit down and say, I gotta really contemplate what these gentlemen are saying, because she could have an 850 body and a 460 credit score.
Hey, that's real, right?
Yo, I'm not
real.
Men, we're visual. We are visual, man. That's what we're about. We're visual. But and after we get past that visual part, then we start to think with the upper echelons of our bodies, and we start to say, wait, there's got to be more to this. Right. And I seen a question in the chat. Why don't we help the women with their credit? That's great. Just like Darren, Travis said that, well, she got to do school. We got to take care of this. We can work this out. But if you're going out and soon as we pay off a credit card, you're maxing out again. You got to go. You and your 850 body got to get out of here. That's my opinion.
Hey, I and I agree with what you're saying. For me, though, to be honest, and I'm understanding what you guys are saying, and I'm stern on from the experience. Like I said, I've been married, and the plan is to get married again. God, I had credit scores, I had communication, I had all these things, but if God is not first, and if that's not our focus on what we're trying to do, because there's so much that we can learn just from the word and just from being disciplined with that alone, how you conduct yourself as an individual outside of the relationship, preparing to get married. How do you prepare yourself or conduct yourself as one in a relationship? So for me, that is my main focus. I'm not there yet, but I'm definitely walking that. Before I get to talking about communication and credit scores and even the body, I like to sit back and listen. And if there's not a mention or two of a relationship with God, or if there's not a desire to, then you're not going to understand the journey and where I'm trying to go. And therefore, to sit down and talk to you about rebuilding your credit score, then what is it to I can't think of the word right now, but what is it to be obedient and say, okay, I'll sacrifice my things to be a wife. So for me, I definitely agree. Credit score, that's the next step. But the entry level I just need to know that one, God is number one in your life, because number one, marriage, credit score, if he's not number one in your relationship, whether you've been married or not, how far can you go? you know, he has to be the head, and then you, and then family. So that's it for me. But again, I'm writing down credit scores and all of that. I'm gonna figure that out. But you know, number one that I still, you know, I want to remain is just making sure that God is number one in my life and her life as well.
I like that, Rich. And I think, you know, I think that, you know, that's good going into it, because some of us old salty dogs, we, you know, we got religion in our life, but you know, that's a given. So I think that that's a great message for the youth, because I mean, I think we all have some God in us. It's just bringing it out. I don't want to miss fielding a few questions that have come from the audience. So what I'd like to do is just ask the one that it came up for us to ask. And that's, what is the most challenging thing for men in a relationship? I'll be succinct in this, and I'm answering this as a married man. The biggest challenge is just making sure that I am open and willing to compromise to make sure that my wife feels valued in the decision-making process. I'll give you a very good example. I'm not saying I'm a professional investing maverick, but I know what I want to do with respect to my earnings. I invest. Now, I've never asked my wife, hey, give me your money. That's crazy. I know, you know, that doesn't make good sense, because I know she's doing what she needs to do. I'm more risk oriented because I understand it. But I think the biggest challenge for men in general is just making sure we have the ability to compromise, because all too often, you know, when it's time to come to the table and make a decision, a major purchase, for example, you know, a wife may, or a male, you know, we have to be able to come together and live with it. Like, you know, we had a project, we had a budget. I wanted that budget to be what it was going to be. But at the end of the day, I think we were like 15% over the budget, right? It was the right thing. You know why? Because my wife was making the right choices that were the bigger picture. And what I also learned, again, watching dad in the relationship, happy wife, happy life. So at the end of the day, that ability to compromise in a relationship is the biggest challenge for a lot of men like myself, because I want to make sure that I give my wife that, and she also, you know, understands that I'm trying to work that. And that's what marriage is, give and take, and that ability to meet in the middle. Anybody else?
Come on, Darren, with that watered down answer, man. You just, yeah. Come on, you know women are crazy. Just even understanding women, man. Come on, man. Come on, what kind of answer is that, man? You don't know what you're going to get from one day to the next, man. You have no idea. That's the most challenging thing, is figuring out the person that you're going to deal with that day. They can leave the house, something can happen on the job, and they come back a totally different person. And you're just like, what just happened? What just happened? Now, come on. You guys don't agree with that? Come on, man.
Listen, I've got to go upstairs when this show is over, so I'm not touching that one.
Come on, man.
But I will say,
come on, man. Somebody help me out. Because Darren with this crazy, oh, we got bills and we got to be on the sick. Come on, you know.
Bay, I'm gonna agree with you, but I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna flip this on his head. The example you gave, in my house, the roles are reversed.
Oh man,
my wife is the OG in that regard, right? She is the perpetually consistent personality in the house, right? She's the center of gravity, right. And everybody here knows it. I have historically had to go and, you know, interact with tons of people and you know, do that you know, maybe be an introvert by nature, but I need that external stimulus to get motivated and to talk to people and stuff. And then when I come home, it's like, whoo, man. So it's often I hear my wife saying to me what you were just saying, like, bro, hey man, come on, let's keep it consistent. Where you at? What's going on here? Your drama today.
But sorry about the interrupt, but that Darren with his answer got me, man. I was like, come on, man, come on.
It is about compromise. I can tell you this with a level of high level of certainty. We've never argued about money ever, with respect to how it's spent. never, because of the structure. And that's a different show. That's a different topic for another show.
That's because Stephanie got everything under control.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
We tend to be aligned with things. I do want to, before we move on, I do want to check, because I saw some things come through the chat. I wanted to make a clarifying statement, because I think someone had made the comment that many single mothers have lower credit scores due to raising children. I wasn't saying that men should do that. I was giving the advice to women, because conversely, if you are that single mother with a lower credit score, why would you even bother with another guy that had the same? Because you're going to probably collectively compound the problem. So just for clarification from my perspective, I was telling women, because I will tell you, deception transcends our sexuality. And I would rather ask the question and try to get to know someone and then find out for myself. But I think, again, I'm saying that as an overprotective brother. I don't want to put my sister's business out, but I've had to deal with some of her slugs. And I would just say, save yourself, But anyway.
I got you. The trend will support that too. Often, I think more often than not, when you think of deception in relationships, right? You have partner X and partner Y, right? Most often, a lot of that deception is going to be from male to female, right? When the relationship falls apart, either somebody was, unfaithful or some other type drama. But, we were talking before we went on air, women often have to bear the responsibility of being the stability in relationships. I've benefited from it personally. I ain't gonna speak for anybody else, but I've seen it in strong relationships throughout my life as being the grounding force is not always the strength of that male role model. There's another quality component that they bring, and that, conversely, it makes them a little bit vulnerable, because they go in, with their soft underbelly exposed a little more freely than some of, our character traits would tell us that we're gonna hold back a little bit.
Well, and not to get
the credit score too.
I'm sorry, Rich, but not to get, too historically deep about it. I mean, there are societies that have been led by matriarchs. I mean, it's very clear. I mean, my dad, again, very strong man, but at the end of the day, in terms of keeping the family unit together, mom did. My dad used to tell me a story. For over 40 years, he would give my mother his paycheck. Now, I don't operate that way, but that's what he did. And she did a good thing. I just don't agree, because, again, I'm a little bit more riskier. He basically was a saver where I'm not. So, I think every situation's different, and it's this divergence of thought, and you have to make it work for you, So, Rich, you were going to say something.
I was just, I get lost in listening to you guys, man. I promise you, I got like a class full of notes right here. Just to piggyback off the audience feedback, when I said God, I wasn't necessarily talking about in the church walls. I learned a lot from different religions. I learned a lot from my dad, who's Muslim. So when I said God, I was just basically saying personally seeking your relationship with him. That was one thing I was going to answer. And on another note, you asked the toughest thing for a man. For me, just being emotionally vulnerable, being from the Bronx, New York, you gotta watch what you say. You gotta, watch your hand movement, and I've just built tough, and then taking the career that I've taken, basketball, and then professionally as an officer. There's just a certain limit of space where I'm still at this day and age. I struggle with not stepping up because of my ego, my pride. So to have that exposed in a relationship, the thought that, hey, you can leave and then you're gonna tell them my secrets, or you don't see me cry, or you done, the things that I'm not comfortable with myself. It's scary, but I understand that it's a risk, that it's something that I have to let go and I have to expose, because how can she truly help me build if she doesn't know my flaws and all, So for me, just being emotionally vulnerable is the toughest thing for me, and I'm learning to become better with that. But that's the toughest part for me.
Hey, Rich, guys, can I jump on that? Rich, once you once you come and you know yourself, telling somebody else about yourself will not bother you because you're comfortable with you. So once you're at the point where you're like, I'm comfortable with me, my goods, my bads, I did it. I did the goods, I did the bad. This is me. Good for bad for worse. This is just me. Once you can say that to yourself, telling another human being, that doesn't matter. Because the hardest person to deal with is you.
True.
That's the hardest person. Because you telling you that, you got to actually lay down and sleep with that thought. That other person, you're going to tell them that, they're going to forget about it in 15 minutes. They don't care. But it's you.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Bay, you giving him some old man wisdom, and the reason, which is good. But this is this is a compliment. But this is why I wanted to jump in, because as men, sometimes many of us are still playing games with ourselves, and some of that is internalized by the person that wants to be the player, you know. And we've all done that. You can't be honest with yourself if you're managing multiple relationships. It's not possible because unless you're dealing with the same type of person. That's been my personal experience. So to make that right, you have to have gone through some things and make that decision to do what you told him you do. And because I've known, you know, you meet 4 people, you can't have the same story. In my opinion.
And everybody has a sad story. Everybody. So
I agree with you,
once
man.
you can accept that everybody has gone through trauma, everybody had something bad happen to them, then you can accept it in yourself. Like, I am normal. This is what I am going through. This is a normal path, but it's normal for me, not for everybody else. And once you can accept that in you, once you get around and once you're having a partner, you can actually sit down and tell that partner what you've gone through without any angst inside of you where you're holding back something, because it's like, I accept me.
That's a process though, Bay.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, it's facts. You spot on. But I had a friend of mine. I got a friend of mine. You know, I got a mixed crowd of friends, but a friend of mine is on house arrest right now. And one of the things that he's asking me about, dude I served with in uniform, asking me about how do you become a good man. He's looking to remake his life and kind of rebuild some of the relationships. He's a father, you know, he's trying to, you know, have good relations with the daughter's mom. They're not together, but he's asking me basic questions about how, you know, what does it mean to get to know yourself? He's getting a lot of advice. Sit and get to know yourself, right? And it's exactly what you said. You have to make peace with the goods, the bads, and the you know, the mediums, right? The indifference. And be in a place where you're willing to move forward, even when it's painful, right? To get to where the vision you set for yourself. But I think that's one of those things. Even listening to you talk, you know, myself, just being introspective, having that level of honesty, or getting to the place where you have that level of honesty with yourself, Rich. It doesn't come part and parcel with, you know, getting into your 40s and getting the gray hairs, because a lot of what Bay said, it resonated with me, where it's a struggle, right? You know, to be a human and to be a man, it's a constant struggle to try and improve. And there's these nuggets and conversations that was helpful, Bay. I appreciate that. I mean to jump in, Jerry.
Yeah, I guess everybody is correct in being honest with yourself. I guess the challenge for us is changing that picture of what manhood looks like that we teach the youth, right? We've all learned through trials of going through the fire that, you know, kind of like Bay said, you got to be able to be honest with yourself. But that's not the picture that is stimulated, you know, from the get-go, right? It is not being vulnerable. It is being this tough, being this macho. And we have to redefine what macho is, or machismo is a better word, right? Not
Jerry, real quick, to your point though, did you see not too long ago who's a fellow comedian, but Ricky Smiley highlighted, there was a comedian that had an adult or a teenage son that was crying in his arms. He had some kind of tragedy occur. He puts a picture on social media, and then there was a backlash in the community, you know, social media kind of backlashed, you know, with this snapshot of what masculinity should look like. You know, if a father is consoling his teenage son, what's the problem with that? You know, that behavior should be encouraged, not discouraged.
I do want to jump into another question. It says, sorry, the last question we had, when do you stop valuing personality or mind over an 850 body?
After a failed relationship. Hey,
yeah, really at that point.
That's a mic drop. Mic drop.
Hey, when you take an L, when you take an L, that 850 body is.
Yep, that's mic drop.
Years ago.
Yeah. It's over. Once you get crushed and you get crushed by her, by the court system, you're like, I'm done.
Next question.
Yeah, let's move on. That's done.
Sorry. So I guess the saying, so are you saying maturity is key on both sides to a relationship?
Yeah, that's the question.
I guess I'll start it off. I absolutely, maturity might not be the right word, but yeah, I think you have to be honest and both of you have to have that discussion, right? You've got to make that list of what's important. And there's got to be some commonality on both lists, right? And so you can both have bad credit scores, you know, one of you going to school and one of you just made some bad decisions, but the honest conversation is, are we both trying to build better for ourselves, right? And being honest in that conversation, I'm not saying throw a credit score out the window, let it sit in the back of your head and remember that when people start to make bad decisions, it was the red light that you saw before. And you've got to pay attention and not wait till you lose the house to say, I didn't know that person was like that. You knew, because if you did the investigation from the get-go, the same way you investigate the company that you want to work for. You know, you don't hold it against the company because they spent millions of dollars doing this, this, and this. You're aware of it, but you still make a decision to go and apply for that job.
Yeah. I mean, one of the problems there, Jerry, though, is that in love language, there's no translation between your head and your heart, right? So I thought
you was going to say something else.
Nah, I'm gonna keep it PG. But you know, between your head and your heart, oftentimes, you know, for those of us who have been in failed relationships, you know, it's one of those things where you are, you know, as Rich put it, you holding on to faith. You are trying to look beyond yourself into, you know, some higher power to kind of guide your actions and help inform the direction that the energy you bring into the relationship. And sometimes it just doesn't work, right? But you have to be cognizant of, you know, when I'm interacting with someone I love, I'm not always going to make rational decisions, right? Because our hearts don't always allow us to think empirically about what we're seeing and feeling, right? It's difficult to rationalize those two sometimes. So having, in Darren's words, having that outside source to kind of give you advice and counsel on checking that credit report or other things that you might not consider doing, that's helpful guidance. You know, it to the individual, it might be a little excessive, but when you start seeing warning signs or flags that issues might arise, then there's some credence that, you know, lends itself to what that person who you know cares about you was actually saying. Is like, oh, hold up, maybe this might not be such a bad thing I need to do. Check that creditreport.com.
Hey, I think in the interest of time, you know, Jerry's the de facto host of it, but we all said behind the scenes, we do an accountability check. So we've got about 15 minutes. And what I want to do is field one more question from the audience, and then we kind of do like a little current event summary with everything that's going on. So the one question that we got from folks was, do you attribute your personal growth to the women in your lives? I'm going to answer that very succinctly. Absolutely. The power of unconditional love can do anything for a man's potential, if that makes sense. I had swagger like you couldn't believe before I met my wife. I thought I was that. And I had some receipts to prove it. But as I matured and just saw limitations that I put upon myself, as I, had some more teeth in the game, there would be times I doubt myself. And when my wife would say, "What? This is Darren Johnson," she would say that to me before I'd say that to myself. So just getting that boost sometimes made me just step back and do self introspection. So for me, definitely a woman, a good woman, can help you spiritually, emotionally, and just, well, financially, obviously as well. But it's a lot. And I've seen that even with my parents. My mom was that glue when my dad got older and started to see we're men. We think we're gods at some point. We think we're the best thing since sliced bread, but that thing called reality and humanity come in. So for me, definitely. What about you guys?
I'm in 100% agreement. As Bay said, that's probably a mic drop. There's nothing else to be said. Absolutely.
I agree. Same as 100%. Even maybe from a different angle, but as far as attire, what I wear, what I smell like, my body, how I am as a father, a mentor. A lot of that is coming from women who are part of my life. So definitely salute to the ladies out there. Sistahship.
Yeah, faith.
Anybody else?
It starts from the day they put you in your mother's arms. It starts from that moment. She has an influence on you, and that's the first influence that you get is your mother. When that day, female or male doctor, and they put you in your mother's arm, that feeling that you get, that the mother gives you, that's the first influence you get from a woman. And every relationship after that you have with a woman has that influence on you, because you take something good or bad from that particular woman. So sisters, girlfriends, cousins, aunts. I got an aunt that I love to death, and she scolded me, and she's taught me, giving me words of wisdom. I've broken down and cried in her arms, and she took care of me. But then she's always tuned me up when I did something wrong,
right?
More than my mother. So, and that got me ready and made me the man who I am. It got me ready for the wife that came into my life. And I had that bad first relationship, and now I'm in a good relationship. So now all of those past women have taught me things to be able to deal with the wife that I have right now. And now this woman that I have now also gives me new aspects on life. So it's a constant feedback, from a woman.
Yeah, true. But I'll quickly add, faith and perseverance have been the two qualities of the women in my life that have reinforced, right? They instilled from an early age. When I think of faith, I think of my grandmother. My earliest recollections of being in church or prayer or anything that is, dutiful or pious, I think of her. And it guides me when I, go through my life, trying to, instill faith and other things into my children, emulating some of the behaviors that were displayed to me, and just having the ability to persevere through shenanigans, listening to my father talk about the challenges he faced in his childhood, having a father that wasn't present, and his desire to want to demonstrate different. I wanted boys so I could demonstrate differently. I heard, I was young, but I recognized the passion in his voice. But the thing was that what he was saying was so foreign to me because of his good example, and to me realizing that my grandmother had to be everything to him, right? That meant a lot. And the older I got, the more I recognized that often, not just in my family, but the anchors in the lives of many men. I've served with tons of strong guys I've viewed as strong men. The anchor in their lives have been, female largely.
Okay, I think right now we're going to do a round robin because I want to leave enough time for Jerry to close the show. What we typically would like to do in the future is kind of just touch upon current events, because with everything going on, I think it makes sense to just do a round robin real quick. And, you know, and my question for us would be, what do we think the most pressing issue is right now in our news cycle or in the world we live in? And for me, it's real simple. It's getting clarity on the Voting Rights Act, and more importantly, you know, making a commitment to get out regardless of our politics and exercising our vote. So that's just me. So I'll pass that on to anyone else that would like to share.
I guess for me, it's police reform. You know, I can go down the list of, you know, atrocities that we've gone through over the years. But we're starting to see some changes, and I just want some more to come in terms of getting the police out of the mental health business, and allowing us to police ourselves in that regard. You know, getting the medics and the fire department out to handle those deadly situations, if you will. So for me, it's police reform.
Okay. Bay.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, babe.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm sorry about that. You know, me trying with my fancy equipment, you know how it goes. I'm really not a current event guy. You know, the whole COVID thing, I'm sick of it, you know, and like Jerry said, the police reform is, you know, that's been going on forever. I really don't have much to put on current events. Current events are very, I'll start watching the news a little bit, but I can't take it, man. It's too much brainwashing, man. I just can't take it. My brain is like resistant. Like I said, I worked for a media company for years, and I know, man. I'm like, don't deal with that. But yeah, the main the COVID thing. You know, I'm worried about our people with the COVID shot. I'm worried about our people with the police brutality. COVID scares the crap out of me because I don't know what they're putting in that shot, and we've been experimented on since we got here, which is, it scares me, man. I'm reading a book right now. I'm back in the middle of it. Medical Apartheid, Bones in the Basement, another book, and Acres of Skin, and the descriptions of what the medical society did makes me fear the COVID shot. Police reform and all that, that's not going nowhere. You know, that's going to stay the same. It's never going to change. We're going to have to change that ourselves.
Hey, didn't you say you were the upbeat one here?
Yeah, but you know, when you get into that, man, when you get into that, that's messed up.
That's the next show.
That's
Come on, man. Hey, you're not leaving much room for me to bring it down, bro.
Yeah, that's messed up. Man. Yeah, our ratings just went in the toilet like that, right there.
No, keep it real.
But I mean, that's why I am. You know, I'll start paying a little more attention, but I try to keep that out of my brain because I try to be upbeat and I try to be a little bit happy-go-lucky, and that's the Gemini in me. So, but I am a history buff. Now, when we get into history, we can go there.
All right.
But I'll alley-oop it to you, Travis.
Yeah, now I'll pick up from where you left off with the vaccine specifically, right? Because I sense, you know, from what you said that I might be on the other side of the issue with the vaccine.
I heard you got your Krispy Kreme donut.
Yeah, right. I'm Moderna, 1 of 2, right? I get my second shot later this month. But the aspect that I would look is the disproportionate effect that not getting the vaccine, right, has on communities of color. I think is something that it concerns me. Now,
wait. But you know what that is? Because we don't eat right. We live in food deserts.
Mm-hmm.
We're already overweight, and it's not something that I'm going to wag my finger at our people. It's the situation we're in, you know. So that's why that's going that way.
Now, there's a lot of contributing circumstance, right? But one of the things one of the things that I think we need to apply more care, black and brown people collectively, is to, and this has come from somebody who's lost close friends and relatives from this disease, from this virus, is we have to be careful about what we say we won't do and be more deliberate about evaluating the data, right? Because I think what ends up happening is I have family members that were so entrenched on falling back on a history of what had been experienced in this country, right? But not properly applying the context. And I'll give you an example. You know, so one of the things that you highlight was past medical experiments on Black folks. Facts. That did happen, right? But what makes this a little bit different is this is a pandemic, right? And so you have something that's got a wider audience. There's more hosts that this thing is looking to seek. And if we take into account that we do have these medical circumstances that may make us more ripe for the picking, may make us more vulnerable, then that's something that should go into the calculation. Our calculation as individuals, you know, by me not taking this vaccine, I may be taking a higher risk. I may be staying safer, right? Or have peace of mind in other regards, not exposing myself to potential, surreptitious kind of things to endanger my body. But at the same time, a pandemic is going to do what a pandemic does. It's going to spread.
But let's throw it over to Rich because we've got about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say for me, just policing in our communities, the policing in the Black communities, and the lack of us policing our own. Those are the two things that affect me and that I'm focused on. So, you know, that's why we got more show, more time.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
And before Jerry, before you close out, I know you're gonna do your thing. I want to thank the audience because this is our inaugural show, and we had a plan or a schematic, and because we had really good dialogue, we're right at the wire, and that's a good sign. So my ask would be is to continue to support us as we support you and come up with good topics in the future. So thank you very much. Jerry, close the show.
This was fun.
I want to reiterate, thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Sistahship Network, Sunday, 2 p.m. to 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. Again, you can catch us on Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Sistahship.com through Genesis Radio. Join us, the Brothaship, on every first Sunday of the month, and then the last Friday of each month for the Queenagers Wisdom Show at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, and y'all have a blessed week.
Shout out to the Sistahship.
All right.
It was fun. I escaped without Bay getting.
Yo, the hat was like going like this.
We on a brother ship. Come with us. We on a brother ship. We on a brother ship.
I thank you guys, man. That was a good show. I'm glad we ran over.
We got this on a brothership united. Sistahship, we got